come around a corner right here at the end of these trees.
Is this the road that you would have come in on?
This road right here.
Really?
You come around the corner right there, you can see this. For some reason, why they never left the door open first. The door was open on the front. It was almost probably about around midnight. And I don't know if it was a full moon or not, but it seems to me it was pretty bright. And went on around and got over there, and I parked my truck right beside my dad's truck and shut the door on it. I figured his battery would be dead pretty quick. And I had my brother-in-law with me, who isn't here. And I ran across over and about where I knew that this digging had been, and went up on the hill and stopped and just started calling their names, hoping for anybody, and of course there was just dead silence. And I turned around. I stood there for, I don't know, time it gets lost. I turned around and looked down, and my son's arm was out of the ground about that far. It was just like walked right past him. And I turned around, and you can draw your own conclusions as to where the light was coming from. It was just like it. Just like it was glowing. And I hadn't seen it previous to that. So I called my brother-in-law over and told him, just told him they're all dead. He said, get my truck, go back down. And I told him to call the highway patrol. So he goes down and calls the highway patrol down to this white house there, and he gets him out of bed. Highway patrol said, we can't do nothing for you. You've got to call the sheriff's department. They call the sheriff's department. Well, they don't know whether it's in what county it's in. Oh, boy. So they bring two sheriffs in and a couple of deputies. So we wound up that night with sheriff from Summit County and the sheriff from Wasatch County, a couple of deputies. By the time they got here, I had my son dug out of the ground. But, when my brother-in-law was waiting down there for the sheriff to come up, there was a couple of kids that had been joyriding out of Salt Lake. And they stopped and wanted to know what the problem was. So they came up in a car. Just a couple of young kids, and by the time they got here, I dug my son out, and they helped me dig a little bit. Well, pretty quickly said, well, nobody knows where we're at, so we better go home. So they left. Probably another hour before the sheriff's department got here, because they had to get them out of bed, that time of night. And so about this time, the sheriff's getting here probably around 4 o'clock. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in silence, but I have never heard this silence. It was on this mountain. You go out at night and you can hear the wind blowing, leaves rustling. There was absolutely not a sound of any kind until these two young men come up. The whole atmosphere changed. The only thing I can tell you is that your dad, and my dad, and my son are standing right there. And they had been there until they knew that their bodies were going to be taken care of. Nobody can ever tell me different. And that had to be the silence. I've been in caves, even in a cave. And the water dripping, there was nothing. The sheriff department got here, and like I say, I had my son dug out, and I was taking rocks out. I didn't see some of those rocks a little bigger. I couldn't even roll them over hardly after later on, but I'd thrown them out. My son was taller than I am at this point, 15. He was standing up, his one leg was down like it had been caught, and he had his other leg up like he was trying to get out with his arm up. So he I dug down over 6 feet when the sheriff's department got there. And we dug for another hour. And I just told him, I said, there's no way that we can dig the rate we're going through, because we'd only dug it, straight down. This hole is like 15 feet wide. So they got on their radio and they called down for a backhoe. About an hour later, here comes a farmer with an old backhoe. The only thing he'd ever dug in his life was a fence post and a corral. He got his backhoe up here and he said, "I'm out of oil." That's how old it was. So the sheriff goes opens his trunk, got a case of oil in there, put half a case of oil in his backhoe so it'd keep running. So it tells you a little bit about what kind of conditions we were working with. This old farmer starts digging. My dad was down in the bottom of the hole. He must have been on his hands and knees when it caved in, because he was down and the only thing that was exposed was his back. His legs and his arms were under. This old farmer went down and he found a backhoe that long, not that wide. He dug down. He took his shirt and his garments off from here to below his waist. Never scratched the skin. I don't know if you guys have been reading the temple or if you're planning on it or anything, but the only thing I can tell you. Nobody can tell me different again. So the temple guards protected his body that night, even in death. We got him out. And then they started digging, and I told them, "You're going the wrong way." They were digging to the east. And they said, "How do you know we're going the wrong way?" I said, "Because this canteen was sitting here when we got here." So they started digging the other way. And Clive was standing in the opposite end of the hole in an upright position. I can't tell you what position his legs were in, but he was standing up about 8 or 10 feet from where my dad and son were. My dad was right straight under my son. Spent a few more hours here waiting for the hearse to come up. They drove the hearse up, and they went through Clive's and my dad's pockets and took out the wallets and the chains and gave it to me. And I took it home with me, and that afternoon I went out to your mom's house and gave it to her. And there was, I don't know who was there at that time, but there was some kids in the house, not little kids, but some of the children were there. Maybe you were there at that time.
I probably was, yeah.